Welcome to the Farmish Kind of Life podcast, where we talk about homesteading stuff and life stuff and everything in between. Join me, Amy Dingman, as we explore big questions on a little farm. Hello, Farmish pals, and welcome back to the Farmish Kind of Life podcast, where we talk about real life on the homestead and thoughtful living and what it means to live just a little more grounded in a world that seems to have lost its ever-loving mind. Today is July 1st. Happy July. I have recently made it through some super stormy nights and power outages. They just keep happening. It's been a crazy summer. It feels like it's either downpouring or it is heat indexes in the hundreds or we need to turn the furnace on. You guys, it has been the craziest summer. What in the world? All right, so this is episode 320, and today we're going to talk about something simple but big. We were made to move. Not in a beach body by summer kind of way, not in a hustle harder, grind your face off kind of way, but in this honest, necessary, human kind of way. Because the more we sit, the more we lose something. And the more we move intentionally and purposefully, the more we wake back up. So if you have been feeling sluggish or stuck or disconnected or just plain off lately, this one's for you. And this is a little bit related to last week's episode, but it's going to go in a little bit different direction. So there you go. But before we get to that, what's been happening on the lifestead? Well, y'all, I planted all this sweet corn, this 9,000 square foot patch of sweet corn. And we're having a big old issue because, as I already said, the weather here has been crazy. And my sweet corn patch looks like a lawn right now. The most beautiful lawn. If I could try to grow grass in my yard like it's growing in my sweet corn patch, it would be amazing. I could probably be on a magazine for the most beautiful yard ever. But I'm having a little difficulty finding my corn in the corn patch because of all this grass. I think what happened is we got a ton of rain and then it was followed by a lot of heat. And then all of a sudden, my sweet corn patch is out of control. And we tried a few things to deal with the weeds and it's not working really well. So I don't know what the situation is going to be with a sweet corn patch this year. I don't know if cornpocalypse is going to happen, but I will let you know. At this point, we're just kind of seeing if the corn is going to outgrow the grass. I don't know that it's going to, but we have tried a few things without luck and it's kind of an overwhelming mess right now. I posted something about this on TikTok saying, what can I do about this mess? And by and large, the responses were, this is why farmers who grow sweet corn in large amounts use chemicals. That was basically the response. So there you go. That's that's what I have to say about that. What else has been happening? I made garlic scape pesto. I talked about last week that our garlic scapes were ready. And so this week I decided, you know what? I'm going to make some garlic scape pesto. And so I've never made pesto before. And when I looked up recipes, like every single one of them was different amounts of pretty much the same thing. So I basically took some scapes and I cut them up in like little 2-inch sections, tossed that in my food processor. And then I threw in some grated Parmesan cheese and some olive oil and some lemon juice. And I turned that bugger on and I let it blend up really good. And it's delicious. I can't tell you the amounts that I used. I think it's maybe kind of a personal preference thing because every recipe I looked at was different. So if you've never made garlic scape pesto, go for it. Just add some stuff and when it looks right, you're done. Sometimes that's what cooking is. That's what kitchen life is, right? All right, next thing. So I got knocked on my butt this past week. And if you follow me on social, you might have seen me reference this. My heart ended up going a little bit wonky. And I think what happened, now that I look back on the last week, I think it was a mix of some pretty intense heat, not eating enough, not drinking enough water, running around crazy, and probably a little bit of stress that I didn't even realize I was carrying. And my body all of a sudden said, you are done now. It pulled the emergency brake and it was like, you're done. I'm kind of revisiting some heart mishaps that I've had in the past and I haven't really dealt with since about 2014. So that was exciting. And just like that, I was on the couch with my husband banishing me to stillness. Don't do anything. Don't move. You are banished to the couch. And my dogs were very pleased to have that unexpected snuggle time where mom was not allowed to leave the couch. And the reason I'm bringing this up is I want to say this up front because today's episode is about movement and how important it is. And so I don't want anyone to hear this episode and be like, well, yeah, that's easy for you to say. You're like always doing all this stuff. But trust me, I get it, because this past week I was not out lifting heavy things. I was not out conquering the world. This past week I was being reminded, you know what, if you don't slow down, your body's going to do it for you. So this episode is not about pushing through no matter what. This episode is about you got to learn to listen to your body and give it what it honestly needs. And sometimes it actually needs 2 days of sitting on the couch with your dogs, even though you're bored out of your mind, so things can get back in sync. So I did just want to put that out there. So there we go. So now we can head over to the main topic, and we're going to take a deeper look at why your body is begging you to get up and do something and lift something and do something difficult, and why it's really weird that we live in a world right now where that is no longer the norm. So last week in episode 319, we talked about how easy can get the job done, but it doesn't always fill you up, right? We are living in a world where convenience is everywhere. We have fast food, we have smart gadgets, we have shortcuts for everything. And while that might seem like a gift, the truth is, when everything gets too easy, we lose something. And we feel that. It's this like dull, disconnected, why do I feel so tired even though I feel like I didn't really do anything? That kind of feeling. And that's what we talked about last week. Today, I want to dig into a very specific layer of that conversation, which is physical work and movement and the way that our bodies were made to be used. Because here's the deal. I've been back at the gym lately, and the first thing that I noticed, besides the very specific soreness in muscles that I forgot I had, is how different I feel overall. Not just physically, but mentally and emotionally, and maybe even spiritually. And it's crazy because people will say, why do you need to go to the gym when you work on a farm? Like, you have a farm, you garden, you take care of animals, you do all these things. Like, that's physical, right? You're carrying feed sacks, you're doing all that. Why do you need the gym? I will tell you, it is not the same kind of work. Because yes, I use my body, right? But then I go to the gym and I use completely different muscles in completely different ways, and I am sore, okay? If it was the same kind of work as I was doing on the farm, I would not be sore when I leave the gym. So I'm just going to put that out there, okay? There's something that happens when we move our bodies on purpose, when we do the work, when we lift, when we dig, when we stretch, when we sweat or glisten, whatever you want to call it. And I think that is something that our modern world is quietly taking away from us. And I think maybe we need to fight to bring it back. Now, the problem is that we have engineered movement right out of modern life. Because most of us, we don't actually have to move anymore. I mean, think about your day. We sit to work, we sit to eat, we sit to relax, we sit to connect. We go from screen to screen, from chair to chair, from car to couch. Unless you have a physically demanding job, which some of you have, but unless you have a job like that, you have to schedule movement. You have to plan to move your body on purpose. And if you stop and you really think about that, isn't that kind of weird? Like, isn't that like wild? We have to plan to move our body. Like, we have to do it on purpose. And that's kind of sad. We've created this way of living where it's possible to go days, without doing anything that actually challenges your body. Nothing that strengthens you, nothing that stretches you. And when that becomes the norm, it starts to chip away at your muscle mass, but more than that, right? It's not just about your muscles, not just about how you look. Like, you start to feel sluggish, you start to feel disconnected, you start to feel tired and exhausted in a way that coffee is not going to fix, a nap is not going to fix. You're just like, ugh, right? And I've seen this firsthand. My husband will tell you that when he went from being a deputy to a sergeant, his job really changed, right? It became less physical. It was more desk work. It was more meetings. It was more paperwork. It was more stillness. And it didn't take him long before he started to notice things in his body, right? His muscles were tighter. He was sore. His energy kind of dipped. Things started to feel off. And it's not just physically, it's like mentally. It's just like you feel sluggish and just like, ugh, right? And I experienced the same thing back when I had an office job. I spent all day sitting, right? There was no moving around in that office. It was just all day sitting. You never got up from your desk, and then you got in your car and you sat in your car, and then you drove home, and then you got home, and what did you do? You were exhausted, so you sat on the couch and you watched TV, right? And you don't realize how quickly your body reacts to stillness until you try to get it back again, right? Till you're trying to get your body back again, or just like movement back again. And suddenly things that used to be easy, like bending or lifting, or even just getting up out of a chair, it feels heavier. Like your body is protesting almost. Like, you know what? We're not built for this. You know why? Because we're not. We're not made to spend our lives sitting still. We are not made to spend our lives staring at glowing rectangles while our food and our entertainment and our relationships and our responsibilities come to us with hardly any effort at all. We were made to engage. We were made to move, to feel the ground, to lift things, to walk, to stretch, to sweat, to exist in motion, right? And when we take that all away, it messes with us more than we think, more than we realize. So what actually happens when we stop moving? What are the real life consequences? Not just long-term health stuff, but like the day-to-day effects. Because I can tell you, it shows up faster than we think, especially the older you are, right? It shows up faster than you think. First, there's the obvious stuff like pain and stiffness. Maybe you get a little more weight around the middle. Maybe you have that feeling when you bend down and you realize like your knees are holding a grudge against you. But it's more than just physical. When you stop moving your body, you also lose clarity. Your brain gets foggy. You can't focus. You feel more overwhelmed and less motivated and more anxious. And for a while, you think it's something else. You blame your schedule. You blame your age. You blame the season. You blame everything else. But your body is just trying to tell you, hey, you know what? I need movement. I need to do something. And when it doesn't get that, it starts sounding the alarm. So you get more anxious, you have mood swings, you have lower energy, maybe you're depressed, you have inflammation. And we are so quick to look for solutions outside of ourselves. We decide we need to take a new supplement, we try some new hack, we try some new routine. But sometimes often what we need is really very simple. We need to move. And the longer you go without it, the harder it gets to start again. Because you don't just lose muscle, you lose momentum. The more still you are, the more still you want to stay. And before you know it, movement starts to feel like a chore, a punishment. And then that gets you saying, well, maybe later, maybe tomorrow, I don't know. And that's when it gets dangerous. And not in some like dramatic medical emergency kind of way, although, that happens too. But there's this like creeping disconnection that settles in when you stop using the body you were given. That spark and that vitality and that let's do this kind of feeling, it gets buried under stillness. And movement, like physical, honest, heart-pumping movement, is one of the things that can bring it back. So what's the other side of this? Let's talk about what happens when you do start moving again. Because for me, I decided, I got to go back to the gym. I know that I like going to the gym. I know that it makes me feel fierce and capable and all of that. So we decided to go back to the gym just because I felt like I needed that. Not because I needed like new year, new me moment, or because I was trying to build my summer body. Not because, it didn't have anything to do with anybody else. I just knew that I needed something different. So I started lifting again. I started stretching and moving on purpose and challenging my body. And y'all, it changed everything. Like I noticed it. My brain got quieter. My thoughts got clearer. I had way more energy. I had more fire and more focus, and it had nothing to do with the scale. I don't weigh myself, you guys, so this wasn't about weight loss. It was about coming back to myself, because physical work is not punishment, it's nourishment. I feel like there's almost something ancient or like primal about it. There's like something deep in you that gets activated when you push your body and you realize, hey, I can do this. Like, rah, I'm fierce, I can do this. When you lift or you build or you sweat or you haul or you dig or whatever version of that exists in your world, it does something to your spirit. It reminds you, you are still here, you are still strong, you are still capable, you can still do this. It's not just movement, it's this reminder that you are alive. Now, I want to be real about something. Movement changes as we get older, right? It just does. A 40-year-old is not a 20-year-old. A 70-year-old is not a 35-year-old. And pretending otherwise doesn't help anybody, okay? But you know what else doesn't help? Stopping. Just because your movement looks different now doesn't mean it's not valuable. In fact, I would say it's probably more valuable than ever. The older you get, like, movement is more valuable than ever. And your joints might ache a little more, and your recovery might take longer, and you might not lift what you used to, but that's fine. The truth is, if you don't move, things are going to get worse. Things will get stiffer and weaker and slower, not just physically, mentally too. And I know that's frustrating because I've felt it. I've talked about it on this podcast. The way your body takes longer to bounce back, the way that a simple movement that used to like be nothing for you to do, now it takes 3 days for you to recover from, right? It takes longer. It's more work. But here's the deal. Movement is still medicine. You just have to find the version that fits for where you are right now. And it doesn't have to be the gym, you guys. I just happen to like the gym. It can be gardening. It can be carrying feed sacks. It can be stretching before you go to bed. It can be taking walks. It can be doing your chores with intention. It can be housework done with gratitude. Whatever your life allows, do that. Because the older we get, the more critical it becomes to keep using what we've been given. If we stop moving, we don't just age, we almost like atrophy. But if we keep going, even just a little, that's how we stay in the game. We stay capable, we stay connected, we stay alive in the ways that matter most. And let's say you hear all this and you think, okay, you're right, I do need to move more. Awesome. But then what? And this is where it gets really frustrating. Like, what do you actually do to make that happen in your day? Do you take a walk around the block? Do you go to the gym? Do you download some fitness app because there's like a gazillion out there now? But if you think about it, like if the ghosts of the pioneers could hear us, they'd be like, hold up a second. You walk around for fun? Like on purpose? With no destination? You walk around the block just so you can move? Like, they would think that's wild. But we have built a world that makes movement optional. Most of us are not scrubbing floors on our hands and knees anymore. If you haven't done that, it's a lot of work. Try it once. It's a lot of work. Most of us don't hang laundry outside every day. We don't beat rugs. We don't pump water. We don't carry things really far. Even compared to a 1950s housewife, we move less. They were washing baseboards and hauling vacuum cleaners that are the size of like Buicks up and down stairs. Now we have robo-vacuums and grocery delivery and bread machines. And again, I've said this a million times, I'm not mad about convenience. I think we naturally like when things are easier, but here's what it's done. It's made movement something we have to actually seek out. We have to look for it. We have to choose it on purpose because the world has been set up so we can live our entire day without using our bodies for anything truly difficult. Technology tried to lighten the load, and we were like, awesome. But in doing so, it kind of removed the load altogether. So now, if you want to move, you have to actually find ways to insert difficulty back into your life. And you know what? That feels really weird if you think about it too much. It feels frustrating because we aren't lazy people. Well, most of us aren't. I'm sure there are people who are lazy. I think most of the people that listen to this podcast are probably not lazy. But We're just trying to move in a world that's done everything it can to prevent that from being necessary. So if you feel like you are fighting upstream, swimming upstream, fighting upstream, when you decide to move more, you are. I think that's real, and I think it's okay to admit it. But even with the weirdness of it, even if it feels awkward and annoying and out of sync with everything that's around you, I think it's still worth it. Because your body doesn't care if it's lifting feed sacks or walking laps around your living room. It just wants to be used. And the more you use it, the more it wakes back up. So what do we do with all this? I think what we do is we choose an active life on purpose. Because it's not going to happen by accident. Like I've already said, we have to fight for movement now. We have to intentionally build it into our lives because everything around us is set up to make sure that we don't. And I don't know if for you this is homesteading is going to make you active, or lifting or carrying feed buckets or walking the long way or scrubbing something by hand or getting down on the floor and back up again. Like doing those things, they're almost countercultural now. And I know that there are fitness influencers out there who make it look really shiny, and I know that there are guys out there with entire accounts that are built around splitting massive logs and then flexing in slow motion. And hey, that's good for them, right? But what I'm talking about is not for show, okay? This is about the life you live in the body you have. Because I honestly believe that the world wants you tired, and it wants you numb, and it wants you sitting down, and it wants you comfortable enough so that you don't complain. And I think it wants you distracted enough so you don't notice. And I think it wants you still enough so you don't stir anything up. But if you choose motion, that's like choosing freedom. That's like saying, you know what? I actually want to feel something. I actually want to be here. I want to stay capable, and I want to stay connected, and I want to stay awake. And you don't have to overhaul your entire routine to start that, okay? We're not going from 0 to 100, all right? Here's my challenge to you. If you are listening to this episode, I want you to think of one thing you can do today to move more. Just to move more than you did yesterday. This is not for calories. This is for clarity. Are you going to walk the driveway? Are you going to stretch while your coffee brews? Are you going to carry something heavy instead of using your wagon? Are you going to put on music and move your body just because you can? Because the modern world is not going to reward that movement, but you know what? Your body will. And your soul will. And this is not about getting shredded or whatever they call it now. This is about you getting back to yourself. You were made to move. So let's move. Thank you so much for hanging out with me here today on the Farmish Kind of Life podcast. I hope this episode gave you something to think about. Maybe even the nudge that you needed to move just a little bit more. Not just because you should, but because it feels good to remember that you're still capable and that you're still here and that you're still strong. As always, if this episode spoke to you, please share it with a friend or shoot me a message. I love hearing from you guys. Take care of yourself, move when you can, rest when you need to, and I will talk to you again soon. Hope you enjoyed the show today. To continue the conversation, visit our website at afarmishkindoflife.com, find A Farmish Kind of Life on social media, or drop me an email at amy@afarmishkindoflife.com. Peace, love, and bacon, y'all. Stay farmish.